My name is Malin, and me and my colleague Malva are from Houdini Sportswear. And we will shortly brief you about the brand Houdini for those of you who don't know us from before. And then we will talk a little bit about our PFAS phase-out journey, the challenges and learnings, and also our participation in the POPFREE project. So Houdini is a Swedish outdoor brand, and these are our core values that we bring with us in everything we do, from every position within the company. Do good, play hard, push boundaries, and have fun. And it all started in 1993 by this woman to the left. It's Lotta Djurnovlice. And to the right is the princess of Sikkim in the Himalayas. And she was traveling, skiing, climbing, and started making underwear in stretch fleece for personal use, but then it instantly became a success among the mountaineering community. So that's when the brand Houdini was born. And now we are about 35 people at the headquarters, which is just outside of the city center of Stockholm. This is our vision, to give people the opportunity to experience the outdoors to the maximum, but without having any negative effect or impact on the nature. And also adding the beyond, because we think that zero impact is not enough. We should move beyond zero and in the end have a positive impact on the planet.
So more concrete, what are we doing? We often say that we are doing wearable multi-tools. So a jacket should not only be used in one opportunity. It could be used for several different things. So skiing, biking, going in the city. So it's great experience but then with less consumption, you can say. So, and why are we doing this? A company needs a reason to exist beyond making money. And our reason is that we really love the outdoors and we love being out in the nature, like you can see on the pictures. But also we want to help people to experience this. And of course, we then don't want to harm the environment. So this is why PFAS or other environmental subjects are very close to our hearts and why we are in this project and here with you today. We have a saying that everything we use is borrowed from nature and we must therefore treat it carefully and we must hand it back. So we're going from linear to circular. And looking at chemicals and PFAS today, this is also a very important aspect. So because we know that PFAS cannot really be circulated and recycled. So we have to think about what we're doing in the start of the process and all the way around in a circular view. And another aspect that we usually talk about is the comfort for body and mind. So how does it feel to have a Houdini product? How does it feel to the skin and how can you move? But also maybe most important, how does the ethical aspect feel? So we want you to be sure that you know that there are no harmful chemicals in the garments, and that you know that our partners and colleagues that are making the garments and the fabrics are having a great opportunity as well. So with all of this in mind, kind of an introduction of our philosophy and how we think, it's kind of a background of why we started to phase out this chemical of PFAS from the beginning.
Looking at our timeline, so we started phasing out PFAS from our products in 2013. And 5 years later, in 2018, all our fabrics were PFAS-free. So some of you might think, why did it take so long? But changing one chemical can actually give a lot of challenges in performance and quality that you might not think would be affected, which means that every fabric has to be tested individually. And that's a process that takes time, especially back then when the alternatives were not so many. And from this journey, we experienced both opportunities and challenges. And to be successful in the phase out, we think that these learnings here are the most important ones. You need to have good contact with your suppliers and asking them questions. What does the product contain and why? What are the alternatives? And the suppliers of yours needs to understand why you're doing this and why you're phasing out these chemicals. So education and communication with your suppliers is key. The testing process, both in lab, but also testing the actual products and the actual garments is super important, since there are different features that might be affected that you might not think about. And every fabric, as I said, needs to be tested individually. What might work on one fabric might not work on another fabric. And then not compromising on performance and quality. Development sometimes takes time, and sometimes you need to look at different angles and test again. And then looking for hidden usages of PFAS. They can be found, as you heard before in the presentations, they can be found through the whole production chain. And it's not always visible. And also the communication with your customers is super important. They need to understand the work you're doing and why you're doing it. And the communication also to meet the customer's expectations and how they need to care for the garments. Pushing the boundaries, do not let the old mindsets or techniques slow you down. Keep pushing to get the industry forward. And also looking at the substitutes. There are a range of different alternatives, and it's a true jungle to know if the substitute is actually a good one or if it's just less bad. And that's why this PFAS guide that you will also mention is a super good tool for phasing out PFAS and looking for substances.
Yes, so even if, as Malin said, we had already phased out PFAS, we still wanted to be a part of this POPFREE project. So it's been ongoing now for 2 years, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been up to in this project. So we have had kind of 2 main areas, like Lisa said. So fabric testing is one, and then we have communication as the other. So starting with the fabric testing, we have together with OrganoClick that you're gonna get to know later, and their formulations done some testing. So we have been testing first of all in lab scale. So looking at the fabrics that we have today and how can we then use these formulations in lab scale, and then moving up to also collaborating with our suppliers that I know maybe some of them are in the meeting today. So that's super, super great. And then, yeah, trying to scale up this process. So I think we have done a lot of learnings from this. It's a very great opportunity to have actually the direct contact with a chemical supplier like OrganoClick, and to have this collaboration between us as a brand, the chemical supplier, the fabric supplier, and then also the garment supplier in the future. So I think this is something to take with you if you are a brand or a fabric supplier. Like, we need to collaborate, and this is something that we learned from the project. And we also learned that lab scale and production scale is something different. So here you also have to be prepared for the development, and that you need to test it also in the large scale. Something else that we learned is that different materials and colors also have different results. So in this project, we were mostly focused on the DVR, the water repellency of jackets and shell layers. And here we can see that different materials need different treatments and different testing. But we have done some successful testing, and we hope that we can also share it with everyone at the end of the project. We will keep on pushing the boundaries and working with OrganoClick to move forward. And as I said, another part of the project have been communication and influence. So even if many of us here today know what PFAS are, it's not the truth for everyone. So we together need to inform the communities, the customers, and our friends out in the world. So we have done some Q&As, and we are referring to NGOs and so on to get the right information about PFAS. So I think this is also an important part of being in this project, to also communicate and bring the information forward. But we have a saying then that we have no sustainability work, we just have a lot of work. And I think that also when it comes to PFAS, this is very true. We still have a lot of work. And that's why we want to give you sort of our view or some learnings when you're gonna maybe continue the journey of phasing out or starting the journey. So here are some tips, tricks, learnings that we want to give you going forward.
Well, innovation is super important to move forward in any industry, not just the textile industry. And we need technology to make better products, better performance, and to create more values for customers without harming the environment with bad chemicals. So everything we do is on nature's terms, and we can learn a lot from looking at nature, but that's also why we need to protect it in the end. And as you might know, the production part is a big part of our product's environmental impact. So working closely with partners and suppliers that take this as serious as we do, having close relationships, working with transparency and traceability throughout the chain. I think these are key points to be successful in development or changing or phasing out chemicals. And the whole supply chain must be involved to make a large impact for the industry as a whole. And we are in the end affected by everyone else's choices. So the good choices that we make will be hopefully spreading rings on the water throughout the whole chain and the whole industry.
Yes, and another thing that we want to bring today to the table is the change of mindset. So how can we think a little bit different and not do as we always did or use the technologies that we always did? So when it comes to then water resistance, as we've been talking about today, this is just an example of changing mindset. So we have made a shell layer in 100% merino wool. as you see on the picture. So instead of even using a DVR, we just use the natural performance that the wool has, that is naturally wind and water resistant. So this can be one way to shift your mindset, but it would be really interesting to see how you that are here today, how can you shift the mindset and look at other solutions going forward that is not PFAS. And I think we have made it clear that collaboration and sharing is key to real change, and we cannot address this too much. So we are very open to collaboration, and we hope that many of you will look into the PFAS work and see how you can phase them out from after today. So yes, thank you very much for listening. This was just a little insight of our journey when it comes to PFAS. So I don't know if anyone has some questions.
Thank you very much, Malva and Malin. Joel, what do you say? Do you have a good question now?
I have some questions and discussions ongoing, but there are.
You can say some for later.
Maybe not directly directed. Yeah, here we come at one for Houdini. Yeah, how water resistant would you say that the merino wool solution is?
It is. I mean, it's not completely waterproof, that you would have it in the pouring rain sitting down on a wet ground, but for lighter showers and for most rain, it actually performs really well. And it's the fabric is by construction and by the natural properties of the wool, wind and water resistant, but it's not waterproof. Yeah. So I guess that's the main difference. But I would say that for 99% of the days in Sweden, it would actually cope with the weather that we have. And for the 1% when you really need the hard protection, you would maybe choose another jacket.
Yeah, thank you, Malin. I think that's very important. I myself used a lot cotton versions of this functionality with Ventile cotton, for example, which has the same kind of properties. And as you say, it requires a change of mindset as user, but once you have done it, and especially in winter time, you really don't want to get back to the shell garments, because these are they give you much better comfort. They ventilate out your sweat and moisture much faster, and you keep dry much longer. So there are benefits to it, to looking other ways, not just compromises, and that's important to stress.
I had one last question here before we move on to Bergans. Yep. And it's related to sort of, is animal welfare top of mind regarding merino wool?
Animal welfare is super important for us as well. So both ethical sides of production, but also environmental sides of production are equally important. You should feel confident buying a jacket from us that both the animal welfare is good, and also the production and the chemicals and everything should be, like Malva said, that the comfort should be also for your mind, knowing that the production is good and animal welfare is important as well.
Do we have time for one more question?
I think we need to move on to Bergans now.